Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and it's time for some more Lone Wolf. We're still on book 2, Fire on the Water, but the worst is behind us. We're now on a bit of a victory lap, bit of a final lap. Doesn't mean it's going to be that much easier, but hey, it's kind of like this, you know, jung, 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 jung. Jung 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 jung. Fire on the water, return of the Kai. Fire on the water, revenge of the Kai. Sommerswerd, he's got the sword, coming for the Darklords, and so on, right? Probably not the best way to start an episode, but there we go. Let's pick up where we left off and reread the last section. We are at full health, and it would seem that apparently everyone years ago assumed that the extra 2 points of combat skill for having weapon skill with any kind of swords was just for bonus for having weapon skill of any kind of swords, even though it's not in the brackets as a reminder and is just there as is. Now, we started with a very high combat skill, so we don't need that extra 2-point bonus. But it really reads as you get +8 combat skill from this, or +10 if you've also got weapon skill with any kind of sword, right? As I said, we don't desperately need these 2 points, and apparently everyone also assumed it was a special item, even though it's blatantly a weapon. It says note the powers in the special item section of your character sheet, but it doesn't say it's a special item. In fact, it never actually says what kind of item it is at all, so I've always used it as a weapon. I will, move it down to the special items if people really want. Although it probably deserves pride of place. I mean, there's no reason to write that there anyway, right? We already know it's a sword, which is why it doesn't say in brackets, just a reminder that's a total of +10 if you also have... It doesn't say that, it's crazy. However, the main argument I imagine for keeping it as a pure +8 is that later on there is, when we get to the Magnamund disciplines, we get to weapon mastery or whatever it is, it doesn't then give you any notes about what to do with the Sommerswerd. Probably because that wasn't necessarily planned at the point when the original adventure was written, and you might not have it because you might not have played book 2. In fact, for many years I had book 1 and book 3, and I had book 3. Then I was able to get hold of book 8, then book 9, then book 1. And then a great number of years later, like 4 or 5 years later, I was able to get hold of book 4 and then book 2, right? So for me, I knew the Sommerswerd existed. I knew it could do some amazing things. It seemed to be a magical sword. And that was it. So here we go. It is early in the morning of the 33rd day of your quest when you ride into Port Bax with Lord Axim at your side. The preparations for war have been completed. The galleons of the Duranese war fleet lie at anchor in the harbour, impatiently awaiting the order to set sail for Sommerlund. On board each ship are many brave soldiers from the Mountain Kingdom, a tough army of skilled warriors eager to face the Darklords in battle. Each man has sworn to avenge their besieged allies or die in the attempt. You are to sail back to Holmgard aboard the flagship ship Jorenor, a warship whose great curving prow and tall masts emphasize its sheer power and strength. You and Lord Axim are taken aboard and welcomed by Admiral Calvin, commander of the fleet, and then the fleet prepares to set sail. In less than an hour, the harbour lies far behind you. The domes of Port Bax are now merely dots on the horizon, and we're rolling a random number, presumably for a flavour event rather than a plot event. And we want the dice roller. So, campaign. Here we go. We have a 6. Of course we do. Excellent. For 3 days and nights the fleet of Durenor spread canvas and sailed swiftly towards the Holmgard. But although the voyage is fast, each ship in the fleet is cursed by misfortune. Sails tear, ropes mysteriously untie themselves, and timbers warp and leak. You remember our initial voyage was similarly cursed. The men become short-tempered in the cramped quarters, and fighting, often to the death, is commonplace. By the third night of the voyage, Lord Axim is close to despair. Never have I suffered such a wretched journey. No enemy has been sighted, nor battle fought, yet half my men are either ill or wounded, and we've lost 2 of our finest ships. We've been jinxed by an evil moon. How I pray that it would wane, but even if we were to arrive in Holmgard this very night, I fear we are too weak to break the siege. As he speaks, you can see the dawn of the next day breaking. You think it'll bring promise of relief, but the calm waters that now surround the fleet contain a far deadlier threat. A veil of sea fog has rolled across the still ocean from a broken spine of land known as the Curlundin Isles. They would be over here. And I believe they feature in the Autumn Snow trilogy. I need to get the new Autumn Snow books, but I held off for a while because I didn't quite have enough money, and they sold out before I could purchase them, and I'm not sure they'll be back in stock anytime. So I got the PDF for the first one from the original Kickstarter campaign. I have the not quite final PDF from the second one, but the first one had some really bad balance issues. Let's see, just a moment. It's almost worth looking it up now. Autumn Snow 1. There was a nice cover by Gary Chalk. I think there's a colour version of the cover, and we are looking for a ridiculously hard fight with a... I mean, given that we're playing a new Kai Lady, it's a fight against a Drakarian warlord with something like 50 combat skill. Essentially, whatever... It's 40 or 50, right? It's a lot. Or is it like 35 combat skill and 40 endurance? But either way, we're essentially fighting in the -9 column, whatever happens for that whole fight. Okay, so we got lines like this for combat, which will make it easier to find. And again, no bookmarks. This section, okay, that's a recycled illustration from book 4 or 5. 5, I think, actually. Anyway, let's see if I can find... Do they not... Does the weird combat... Let me get some new pictures as well. Does the weird combat format not... No. Just some Gaiacs. Picture of some kind of nutter. Skinny bloke with a cleaver. Does he or does he not actually really look like the gyrocopter pilot from Mad Max 2? Quite possibly. Right. Come on. No. So yeah, lots of pirates in this adventure, as we're seeing. And then down here, veteran pirate, yeah. I don't remember fighting that many pirates. I remember them being part of the event. There we are. Combat skill 25, endurance 32. As a final encounter in an initial adventure that was intended to be part of a trilogy, for a normal rank 5 Kai monk who doesn't have the Sommerswerd or anything special, this is harder than the Helghast fights in Book 2. It's just brutal. He sees what... Yeah, and that's the easy version of a fight where you pre-wound him, right? It can be a straight up, 36 endurance if you don't jump off the balcony and hurt. Oh, that's an arrow, so that's some damage. I'm pretty sure there's a straight fight version where it's like 40 endurance. The Pit of Darkness, I don't remember that. So we'll look forward to playing this again at some point. Preferably, I understand the revised version from Holmgard Press has rebalanced some of the combat encounters in this book, by which I presume all the combat encounters with Dakar Torg, the Drakarim warlord. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a Drakarim warlord, he should be really good at fighting, but should we really be fighting that at the beginning of our adventuring career as a brand new character? You know, it feels very odd. But anyway, you get the point. Let's get back to the adventure. A veil of sea fog has rolled around across. A veil of sea fog has rolled across the still open ocean. Still open? Look, we're getting that picture ready, okay? Look at that. It'll make sense. If you know the section, you know already. If you don't, hey, you're about to find out. A veil of sea fog has rolled across the still ocean from the broken spine of land known as the Curlandin Isles. Strange dark shapes hide within this mist. They are growing large, and slowly the distinct outlines of ships become plain. "Prepare for battle!" the Admiral's cry is repeated along the many decks of the Duranese fleet. "All hands on deck!" As the black ships approach through the fog, a horrific sight befalls you. They are death hulks, sunken ships crewed by the living corpses of drowned sailors. They have been summoned to the surface by great wizardry, and they are closing for battle. Suddenly the fog vanishes, and you can now see that the death hulks bar the entrance to the Holm Gulf. In the centre of the line is their sinister flagship. Swiftly it sails towards you, a huge ram protruding from its black prow. As it rips its way through the hull of the Gerenor, you hear the Admiral's last desperate order. "Abandon ship!" You are now in the thick of the enemy fleet, and the Gerenor is sinking fast. We can jump onto the deck of the Death Hulk flagship, or dive into the sea and try to swim to another Duranese ship. I would like to point out, this serpent, it's the same image we have seen inked into the forearms of all the cultists who've been trying to kill us so far. I think we leap onto the Death Hulk itself, because it's not sinking, technically. It's kept up by magic or something. We can try and swim to another Duranese ship. We might get run over by another Death Hulk or something equally sinister. You land on the rotting timbers and crash straight through to the deck below. You are unharmed by the fall, but the stench of decay that fills your nostrils is overwhelming. We must have landed on something soft. You clamber up and unsheath the Sommerswerd. 4 ghastly zombies stagger out of the gloom. Their twisted hands extend towards your throat. You must fight them as one enemy. Excellent! It's time to put this undead slaying magic sword to use. Oh, right. Caps lock again. Problem as usual. So our combat skill at 17 is so we're in plus 14. Okay, it's a joke. And they have 16. Not for long they don't. Endurance points. So we are literally rolling in the last column. Excellent. So the sword shines brightly in our hands, and with the power of the sun, we roll a 3. The enemy takes 22 damage, because they are undead, and Lone Wolf takes 2. We rolled very low and actually take damage. It's okay. We can recover from this. If you win the fight with the Sommerswerd, they are undead creatures, so remember to double all endurance points that they lose due to the power of the Sommerswerd. Nice to have a reminder, as it's our first time using it in battle. They are immune to Mind Blast because they don't have any minds. The stench of the ship is making you choke. You lose 1 endurance point, but regain it because you have the ability of healing and get 1 point every section. You must get out of this vile hold or you will suffocate. We do have the Kai discipline of 6th sense. Someone or something is approaching the door of the hold from the other side. If you climb out through the shattered deck, you will leave your legs vulnerable to attack from below, and there is no other way out. You sense that it is an evil creature of some considerable power. Raise the Sommerswerd and prepare for combat, and regain a point of endurance point because it's a new section. Let's fight. Helghast? Helghast! Excellent. The door bursts open, and in rushes a Helghast, its black sword raised. You strike the creature as it enters the hold, and open a terrible gash in its chest. It lets out a hideous cry, but although badly wounded, it leaps forward to attack you. You must fight this creature to the death. The wounded Helghast has a combat skill of 22 and an endurance of 20, and we are reminded that it's an undead creature and immune to Mind Blast. Okay. The wounded Helghast, 1 or 2 L's? It is 1, yeah. Combat skill 22, so we're fighting at plus 5. And it has 20 endurance points remaining. Helghasts are really tough. So, this column. Let's see if we can get slightly better roll this time than a 3. Oh, we got slightly better, all right. Enemy takes 18. Enemy takes 36 damage, and Lone Wolf takes none. If you kill the creature, with ease, you may leave via the open hold door. Ah, yes, this picture. I believe this illustration was also recycled in Advanced Hero Quest in the traps section, with like a fireball trap description. Great game, Advanced Hero Quest, by the way. Much better than Warhammer Quest in so many ways. It had 1 or 2 weak points, but a lot of really good points. And we are now back up to full endurance. You make your way up a flight of stairs and onto the crowded deck. Fierce battle rages all around you as the Duranese fleet is engulfed by the rush of ghostly Deathhulks. Suddenly, a flash of searing flame shoots from a tower at the rear of the Deathhulk you are on and explodes into the side of a Duranese warship less than 50 yards away. You watch with horror as soldiers leap from the deck, their clothes and hair in flames. We can investigate the tower where the fire is coming from and prevent the fire from issuing forth once again, or escape the ship by jumping overboard. We will investigate the tower. 2 zombies try to block your passage, but you cleave them in half with 1 sweep of a Sommerswerd, like some manga twat on drugs, because that is shit. You're at the foot of the tower, and you can now see a hunchbacked man in crimson robes above you. He wears a tall, curved tokmor, a magician's headdress. It bears the emblem of a serpent. In his right hand is a black staff. If you have ever been given a crystal star pendant, which is a good way of accounting for the fact we might not have it, and there's not a footnote that this has been changed or updated, we have, so we turn immediately to section 113. He is Vonotar, the traitor, renegade wizard from the Magician's Guild of Toran. He is a master of the black arts and now possesses great power which the Darklords themselves have given him. It was his agents who tried to assassinate you during your quest, and it is he who commands the Death Hulk fleet. Destroy Vonotar, and you will destroy the evil force that gives power to the Death Hulks and their crews. Footnote. It is likely that the information provided here is a combination of the information given to you previously by Barnadon and the Kai discipline of Sixth Sense, both of which you must have in order to receive the Crystal Star Pendant. True. Did that even need a footnote? Well, maybe if you haven't played Book 1 and you're just playing Book 2, in which case, what are you doing at this section? You may climb the tower and attack Vonotar, or escape from it. No, we will absolutely prevent him from using his evil power. And... wait for it. This is the exact pose used for the original Vonotar miniature sculpt, and it was a good miniature. You know, there's been much worse. I've got him knocking about somewhere out in my old room. I'd have to go look for it, but yeah, if I dig him out at some point, might, you know, put up a little message on the channel in the post section with a photograph or maybe even a little video, who knows. But yeah, look at him there blasting off fire-destroying ships while his Death Hulks sail their tattered, ragged sails, blowing in the wind, or flapping feebly. We're absolutely going to climb the tower. The climb is very difficult, for you have only one free hand. The other holds the glowing hilt of the Sommerswerd, which you could have just put away and drawn again as you got near the top, or at the top. You eventually reach the brim of the tower and quickly hook a leg over the narrow ledge. You're about to jump into the tower and attack when a thin voice makes you freeze. How I shall delight in the irony of your death, lone wolf. The sorcerer is standing in the far corner of the tower, his left hand pointed at your head. Your quest has failed, lone wolf. Now you must die. And we have an excellent piece of filler art. I think that was used in Advanced Hero Quest as well. A lot of Gary Chalk's art was in that game, from the Lone Wolf early books. A blinding flash of orange flame shoots from his hand towards your face. But in a fraction of a second, the searing burst of flame changes direction in mid-air and is drawn towards the blade of the Sommerswerd. The bolt of energy disappears into the golden blade like water into a drain. You remember that the Sommerswerd has the power to absorb magic, like Druss's axe. In the early chronicles of Druss the Legend, it only happens for one time, because the demon is still in the axe and it eats up the spell before the spell can affect him. Not that anyone sees this, apart from the priest. That's actually a really nice thing about David Gemmell's fantasy. Only characters with strong faith can perceive the supernatural elements, which are invisible to the normal folk. This power has saved you from certain death. The sorcerer curses you, pulls a jewel from his ornate Tokmor and throws it at your feet. There is a flash of flame and a cloud of choking green gas billows up in your face, filling your nostrils with its acidic smell. You are forced to jump to the deck below to avoid the poisonous gas, and you just catch a glimpse of the sorcerer as he frantically paddles a small boat away from the Death Hulk flagship. We can dive into the sea and swim after him. Probably not a good idea, because he needs to be alive to make it into Book 3. Or fight our way back to a Duranese warship, because, hey, this Death Hulk isn't going to stay up on top of the water forever if he isn't using his magic to keep it there, especially as he knows I'm still on the ship. Let's get back to a Duranese ship that isn't being sustained by his magic. As you race along the corpse-littered deck, two Dracorian warriors emerge from a doorway and attack you by surprise. You must fight them one at a time because the second one's coming out of the first one. Okay, so the first one we're fighting at +10. And 25. And the other one will be fighting at +11 and 26. Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, almost the same column. So the first Dracarim emerges, and we roll a 5, so we are taking damage, 2 whole points. But he takes 12. So if we can roll a 6 instead of a 5 or higher, we're good. We roll an 8. Excellent. 18 damage to the enemy, none to us. On to the second one. In the plus 11 column with 26. This second one, he's a little unnerved at the sheer violence and devastation we've wrought upon his foe. We're not going to evade. And so he's a little disheartened, so his combat skill's a little bit less, but he's got more endurance points to make up for it. Then again, we rolled a 7, so he is taking 18 endurance points and we are taking none. Excellent stuff. The Sommerswerd is the stuff of legends. We roll another 8, another 18 to him. The fight is done. If you kill them both in combat, you can then jump to the deck of a nearby Durinese ship by turning to section 120. Luck is with you, for you land safely on the deck of the Calcam, a Durinese warship. The soldiers here have been involved in a desperate battle, but have fought off the enemy and are cutting the grappling ropes that hold the ship to a death hulk. From out of the smoke strides Lord Axim, his face bloodied and his shield badly scarred. Thank the gods you are alive, Lone Wolf. The fight has been bitter and our losses are high, but I am heartened indeed to see you standing before me now, he says, and leads you to the ship's rail. Look yonder, their flagship is ablaze. Indeed, I was on it. Through the fog of war you can see that the huge death hulk is slowly sinking beneath a plume of dense black smoke. The Calcam is eventually freed, and slowly it manoeuvres out of the tangle of wreckage. A wind begins to stir, filling its tattered sails and carrying away the smoke of battle. Lord Axim orders the royal arms of Durenor to be hoisted aloft so that other ships can rally to the Calcam. For the first time since the battle began, you can now see the other Durinese ships. It is an amazing sight, for as the enemy flagship sinks beneath the waves, so every death hulk on the horizon returns to its watery grave. Their sorcery is broken. We have won this battle, says Lord Axim, and within a few minutes not one of the death hulks remains afloat. 70 Durinese warships left Port Bax, but only 50 now enter the Holm Gulf. The battle has claimed many brave men, including Admiral Calfan, who died aboard the flagship Durenor, the first ship to be sunk. But despite the heavy loss, a great victory has been won, a victory which inspires the Durinese soldiers with new strength, so that the past ordeal of both the voyage and the battle are now forgotten. As their optimism and determination return, all are eager to reach Holmgard and raise the siege. It is dusk on the 37th day of your quest when you sight the spires of Holmgard on the horizon. The city still stands defiantly against the army of Darklords, although constantly under siege. Flickering in the darkness you can see the small fires which burn throughout the capital. A confident Lord Axim joins you at the prow. The moonless sky will aid us this night. We shall enter the harbour unseen. Come the dawn, my men will scatter the wretched foe like dead leaves upon the wind of a storm. As you enter Holmgard harbour at the head of the Durinese fleet, you unsheathe the Sommerswerd and prepare to fulfil your destiny. Holmgard has suffered much since your departure. Many of the shops and houses you remember passing through on your way to the quay are little more now than heaps of ashes. The Darklords' army, with their evil engines of war, surround the walls, and the flaming arcs of fireballs shooting through the air continually light the night sky as they rain down on the streets below. The people fight the fire as best they can, but they are hungry and exhausted and close to surrender. At first, as it enters the harbour, the fleet is mistaken for the enemy, and cries of despair can be heard all along the quay. But as the first of the soldiers set foot on the city and unfurl the royal arms of Durenor, the news of your return spreads quickly. The cries of despair have changed to a chorus of cheers. The Kai Lord has returned! You are standing at the top of a great watchtower high above the main gate of the city when the first light of dawn creeps slowly over the horizon. Thousands upon thousands of the black-clad enemy are massed around the city wall, huddled like beetles in the trenches that cover the plain. In the midst of this horde, a great red tent has been erected bearing the symbol of a broken skull. It is the mark of Zagana, Lord of Karg, the Dark Lord of Helgadad. His great ambition is the destruction of Holmgard, his fiercest desire to lead his army to victory over the House of Ulnar and claim Sommerlund for his own. But victory will not be his this day. Raising the Sommerswerd high above your head, a shaft of dawn sunlight catches the tip of the golden sword, and a brilliant flash of blinding white flame runs the entire length of the blade. The power of the Sommerswerd electrifies you. Your senses reel, and now your body reacts instinctively. You lower the Sommersword and point the blade towards the tent of Lord Zagana. There is a mighty roar as the power of the sun sword is unleashed in a searing white beam. The tent explodes, and a brilliant fireball of white flame mushrooms skyward. A long and terrible cry rends the air. It is the Lord Zagana, the leader of the evil army, is no more. And we are definitely getting that image up full. We see the Gaiac running away in terror here. A few of his companions also fleeing. Gripped with fear and panic, the vast black army rise up and run in chaos from the city wall. The impossible has happened. Their invincible master is slain. Again the Sommerswerd has returned to defeat them. The army and the allies of Durenor ride out of the city gates in pursuit of the panic-stricken enemy as they run blindly towards the Derncrag mountains. The victory is yours. Holmgard is saved, and the murder of the Kai has finally been avenged. But for you, Lone Wolf, a life of high adventure has only just begun. A new challenge awaits you and the Sommerswerd in Book 3 of the Lone Wolf series, The Caverns of Khalt. And that we will definitely look forward to playing in the near future. I will say that's probably my favourite version of the Battle on the Water towards the end of the book, although there is a slightly different version. If you go on to the... I think if you go on to the other Duranese warships, you end up fighting against an undead version of the captain from your first voyage. And we get a lot of lag here. There we go, there he is. Let's just... Table of contents. Illustrations. It's going to be one of these. We'll find it. You know what? Feeling relatively calm right now. I should be feeling a bit hyped, but also like, yeah, episode was a bit short. Could be more fulfilling. Weird. I think the possible delays and the need for a replay after an early death against the Helghast. Mainly, I think, actually, it's not being able to give away the magic spear. There's a Helghast. Yeah, they are freaky, horrible monsters. And we visited, like, every illustration in the book, apart from... Oh, no, we didn't get this one. More Helghast attacking Lord Lieutenant Rygar and his men. Okay. Wow. There we are. Captain Kelman. The undead version. And the undead captain tells you to put the Sommerswerd down on the ship's deck, and then his soul will be spared and he won't have to be undead anymore. And it's an auto-kill if you do. It's just, you idiot. You know. And he dives in... Oh no, dagger. He doesn't push you into the sea and drag you down. Okay. But yeah. And what have we got here? Oh yeah, we saw that one too. So for this adventure, virtually all the illustrations are on the the pure path, the most correct path. Then again, this is probably, with the single exception of the tail end of book 6, the hardest book in the initial series of 12. Because of the whole issue of the Silver Spear and the Helghasts. It is just brutal. Normally in every Lone Wolf book, you could start with combat skill 10 or 11 and stand a good chance of making it through, but the original version of Fire on the Water, where you need to fight that Helghast to get the Silver Spear, to have it later on to get into Hammerdal at all, that's just a no-go if your combat skill is like 14 or lower. And even then, oof, you know. Plus, you basically need weapon skill with spears to stand a chance, because you only get to use for one weapon and it has to be the magic spear. Well, we've got another adventure behind us, another section 350. This series' version of Turn to Section 400 has been achieved. You know what I should do? I should save this, copy all this information, and put it on the backup sheet. And update the book number. There we go. But with this adventure out of the way, we can look forwards to book 3, the first Lone Wolf book I ever bought, for like 50 pence or £2.50 or whatever it was. Yeah, how inflation affects things now, eh? Back in my day, things weren't cheap, they just cost less. Yeah, think about that for a moment. It makes sense, just, yeah. I reckon this one's going to be the episode thumbnail if I can squeeze it in somehow. I do like the fact that Gary creates these artistic scene framings sometimes. It's more fun than, you know, and this as well, right? Now maybe it's to disguise some part of the picture, right? You know, maybe there was a problem down here, like he just couldn't get her thigh and waist, right? Or something, or he just got bored of filling these robes. I don't know, right? That's an interesting thing with miniature sculptors, actually. If you see a miniature with an odd, unexplained bracelet or ankle cuff or something, or sometimes even it's a ring on a finger or necklaces, right? It's usually to hide the fact the sculptor buggered up a joint and it didn't look very good, so they put something over it to disguise it. Not always. So, you know, it's also artistic. It's like, hey, we want to put this here, right? But often, that's what it is. And with that, I think we're going to wrap this episode here. I hope you've all enjoyed this one. A little shorter than usual, I think. And I'll look forward to seeing you all in the very next episode. Now that my mouse is working again and I can actually open things without... So, basically my mouse was on the blink and it would scroll down constantly, right? And I could try scrolling up and it would judder a little bit like this and then go down again. So I couldn't get up the top to edit endurance points. And on scroll bars on the side, it would get stuck after traveling a very short distance, and that included on web pages as well. I could only go about that far. I could just about use the mouse wheel but every time I scrolled down, it would go up a little bit, and it was a nightmare basically. And I knew that over the next few days, from past experience with this mouse model, it would just get worse and start affecting more and more things. So yeah, another adventure down. Oh, and that means, of course, we're going to get a new discipline. I think hunting. Here's the bizarre thing, right? We cannot hunt in the wildlands, but we can in the frozen northern tundra of Kalt. Yeah, bear that in mind. And look, even if mysteriously we can't hunt in Kalt because the book's been updated or something, we can say, all this experience in Kalt has, taught us. And we have been very low on... Actually, you know what? Another reason for hunting is we've had so many food shortages and incidents with poisoned food. We can't trust food from establishments, so we need to be a bit more self-sufficient. So probably hunting, but I'll look into it and make up my mind when the time comes. Alright. Bye for now, everyone, and thank you very much for watching. See you all soon.